Hi, I'm Jeff Dixon. This is We Didn't Start the Fire, our look at life and the world around us from the book of Joel, Billy Joel. Of course, not the book in the Bible, but the music and the songs of Billy Joel and what they mean, and more importantly, what they mean spiritually, and how to take those lessons from the song and apply them to your life. Now, most of you, if you're watching this, you either are familiar with the Church of 434 and the things that we teach about, or you're familiar with the music of Billy Joel. And Billy Joel has numerous top 40 hits and has been around as an artist for a long, long time. But this is a song that became one of his best-selling songs, but it's about having grace for yourself in the midst of suicide and depression. Not the usual Billy Joel song. The song is You're Only Human. And it's also subtitled Second Wind. And he wrote it to address teenage suicide and encourage young people to give themselves grace and self-forgiveness. Now, if you understand the background of the song, Billy Joel in his life on two different occasions tried to take his own life by suicide, of course. And so he wrote the song from his own experience, his own struggle with depression and mental health. And while it's much more complex and fractured than the straightforward story that he tells in Second Wind, it's almost like a bubbly pop song. He uses an upbeat song against the back of a venomous, toxic kind of world that he was dealing with at one point. There was a point in his career where he had basically felt like he had hit the top of the charts for the last time. He had gone as far as he could musically, and the critics were beginning to pan him a little bit, and he was depressed, he was suicidal, he thought that he had nothing left to live for because there was nothing left to attain. And so there's another song that came out about the same time. We may talk about that later in the series, but I'll mention that at another time. But he said, you know, it's one of those things that when you get to the point when you're at the end of your game and you've done everything that you can do and everything you thought you could ever do, and there's nothing left, and you really view life that way, that's really messed up. And so he begins talking about the events in his life, and he ends up trying to kill himself, believe it or not, by drinking furniture polish. And as nasty as that sounds, it reminds me of the old Jim Stafford line, polished to death, but what a beautiful finish. And it's a horrible joke, but Billy Joel actually did just that. I mean, he's that guy. And he tried to kill himself by doing that. In other words, he just made himself sick, is what he did. But he was put into an institution. As Joel recalls it, he said, you know, I was in there with people who had real problems, like guys trying to kick junk and people who were homicidal maniacs and schizophrenics. And he said he stared into the abyss and he saw himself with all those people who had serious problems and decided he couldn't stay there. What he didn't understand at the time is that he also had a serious problem, which was the reason that he was there to begin with. And so he reset his career in some ways. And he came out of that and he began to noodle and write this song that one day would become that hit song that was just about life is not always going to go the way you want it to, and you're just going to make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that you make a mistake or somebody doesn't like something or you mess up in a huge way and it's the end of the world. That you need to learn to give yourself a little bit of grace. And don't forget that there's a second wind coming. And when that second wind comes, life is going to look a lot different. He had found his second wind. And so the Billy Joel that we see today at this point in his career is a guy who has not released a studio album in many, many years. He's quit writing songs. But he continues to perform and and is a very popular artist and continues to sell out Madison Square Garden. He's a guy who has come full circle with an understanding of that and the importance of that. You don't have to go far to stretch the spiritual meaning of this. We're all going to make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are going to be huge, but at the end of the day, Don't forget that in Jesus you find your second wind. You find the forgiveness and grace that you need. And his song to encourage people to do that is a song that many people have talked about that have helped them through rough times, which is great. As a pastor, I would say Jesus will help you through those rough times, but also remember the lesson of the song. Don't be so hard on yourself. There's help and there's hope and there's a second wind that's coming. If you've ever dealt with thoughts of suicide, don't struggle in silence. You can call 1-800-273-8255 for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That's 1-800-273-8255 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Don't struggle in silence. Reach out for help. That's what the song was written against, that kind of backdrop, that kind of understanding. We all mess up. We all need help, and it's certainly not the end of the world. Don't forget, there's a second one coming. There's forgiveness found in Jesus. We're reminded of that in that song. That's it for this edition of We Didn't Start the Fire. We'll continue to look at the life and the music of Billy Joel and have a little fun along the way. Until next time.